We're so close to 1,000. One subscribe from you could be the one that unlocks it. Yellow heart. Christmas dinner was supposed to be about family. Instead, it became the night my father chose my brother over me, threw my bags out the door, and told me to take my daughter and get out. I didn't scream. I didn't cry in front of him. I picked up my bags, took my daughter's hand, and walked into the cold without a single word. But the next morning, everything changed. My father called me 11 times. His voice was shaking. For the first time in his life, he was afraid of what he had done, and afraid of what was coming. This is the story of how one quiet exit turned into the loudest lesson my family ever learned. My name doesn't matter for this story, so let's just say I was the daughter nobody clapped for. I joined the army at 19. While my friends were going to parties, I was learning discipline, respect, and sacrifice. I earned my rank the hard way. Years of deployments, missed birthdays, and holidays spent thousands of miles from home. My daughter grew up watching me leave in uniform more times than she could count. She learned to be brave before she learned to ride a bike. My brother, on the other hand, stayed home. He never left the house before he was 30. He worked odd jobs, borrowed money he never paid back, and somehow, in my father's eyes, he was still the golden child. Every time I came home on leave, I hoped things would be different. I hoped my father would finally say he was proud of me. Instead, he compared me to my brother, as if serving my country meant less than staying close to home. I told myself it didn't matter. I told myself I didn't need his approval. But deep down, every daughter wants her father's respect. That Christmas, I found out just how far he was willing to go to protect my brother, even at my expense. The table was full. Turkey, candles, the smell of cinnamon in the air. My daughter sat beside me in her little red sweater, so excited for her first Christmas back with her mom in years. Then my brother opened his mouth. He started complaining about money, about how unfair life had been to him, about how everyone else had it easy. He looked straight at me and said the military had made me cold, distant, unworthy of being called family. I stayed calm. I told him I didn't want to argue, not on Christmas, not in front of my daughter. But my father, the man who raised me to believe in loyalty and respect, took my brother's side without hesitation. "You always think you're better than us because you wear a uniform," he said. "Maybe it's time you remembered where you came from." I felt my chest tighten. Years of service. Years of sacrifice. And in one sentence, it all meant nothing to him. I tried to keep the peace. I really did. I said maybe we should just enjoy the meal and talk about this another time. That's when my father stood up, walked to the guest room, and dragged my military bags out to the front porch. He opened the door, threw them into the snow, and turned to me with words I will never forget. "Take your daughter and get out. This is still my house, and I decide who stays in it." The room went silent. My daughter's small hand tightened around mine. She looked up at me, confused and scared, waiting to see what I would do. I didn't beg. I didn't argue. I didn't remind him of everything I had done for this family, the money I sent, the risks I took, the nights I prayed I would make it home to see her grow up. I simply nodded, picked up our bags from the snow, took my daughter's hand, and walked out into the cold night without looking back. The wind was sharp. My daughter shivered beside me as we walked to my car. She asked me in the smallest voice, "Mommy, why did Grandpa do that?" I didn't have an answer that would make sense to a child. So I just held her hand tighter and told her everything would be okay. We checked into a small hotel that night. I tucked her into bed, watched her fall asleep, and finally let myself feel the weight of what had happened. I wasn't angry anymore. I was done. Done trying to earn a place at a table where I was never truly welcome. Done shrinking myself to make my family comfortable. For years, I had given my father the benefit of the doubt. That night, I stopped. What I didn't know yet was that walking away that night would set off a chain of events my father never saw coming, because there were things happening behind the scenes that he knew nothing about. Here's the truth my father never bothered to ask about. For the past 3 years, I had been quietly paying off the second mortgage on his house. After he lost his job during a rough financial stretch, I stepped in. I never told him it was me, I set it up through a private arrangement with the bank so he wouldn't feel embarrassed. I did it because he was my father, and despite everything, I loved him. I also co-signed a loan for my brother 2 years earlier, when he swore he would pay it back within a year. He never did. The loan was still active, and my name was still legally tied to it. That night, when my father threw me out, he had no idea he had just cut off the two safety nets holding his entire financial world together. I didn't do it out of spite. I simply stopped covering for people who no longer wanted me around. Sometimes the most powerful response to disrespect isn't anger. It's simply stepping back and letting the truth show itself. The next morning, my phone rang before sunrise. It was my father. I let it go to voicemail. It rang again, and again. By the 11th call, I finally answered. His voice was different, shaky, desperate, nothing like the man who had ordered me out of his house the night before. "The bank called," he said. "They said the mortgage payment failed. They're saying there's a loan under your name attached to the house too. What is going on?" I stayed calm. I explained, simply and without emotion, that I had been the one covering his mortgage, and that my brother's loan was still tied to my name. I told him that after last night, I no longer felt obligated to protect either of those arrangements. There was a long silence on the other end of the phone. For the first time in my life, I heard real fear in my father's voice. Not anger, not pride. Fear. Within days, the full picture became clear to my father. My brother had also taken out a separate loan using our father's signature without fully explaining the terms, a loan he had let fall behind for months. The bank was preparing to take action on the house. My father called a family meeting. My brother tried to blame everyone but himself, insisting it wasn't a big deal, that things would work out. But for the first time, my father didn't defend him. He sat quietly, staring at the paperwork, realizing how much he had built his sense of security on my sacrifices he had never once thanked me for. He finally understood. The daughter he called cold and distant was the one holding his world together. The son he defended without question was the one who had put it all at risk. My father asked me to come back, to fix things, to help save the house one more time. I told him no, not out of revenge, not out of cruelty, but because for the first time, I chose myself and my daughter over a family that only valued me when they needed something. I told him I would always love him. I told him I forgave him. But I would no longer sacrifice my peace to fund a home where I wasn't respected enough to stay. He didn't argue. For the first time, he didn't have the strength to. Moving forward. My daughter and I found a small apartment near my next assignment. It wasn't fancy, but it was ours. No one there could throw our bags into the snow. No one there could make her feel unwanted at a holiday table. Slowly, my father reached out, not with demands, but with real apologies. He started seeing a financial counselor. He sat down with my brother and finally set boundaries instead of excuses. It took time, but he began to understand the difference between loving someone and using them. Looking back, that Christmas night wasn't the end of my family. It was the beginning of the truth. Sometimes the people who are supposed to protect us are the ones who take us for granted the most. And sometimes the most powerful thing we can do isn't to fight back loudly, it's to quietly stop carrying the weight of people who never noticed we were carrying it at all. My father was terrified that morning, not because I threatened him, but because he finally saw what happens when the person holding everything together simply stops. I didn't destroy my family that night. I just stopped hiding the truth from it. If you're standing in a room where your sacrifices are invisible and your worth is questioned, remember this. You don't have to raise your voice to be heard. Sometimes, walking away quietly says more than any argument ever could. Respect isn't something you beg for. It's something people learn the hard way when they finally feel your absence. And if there's someone in your life who takes you for granted, ask yourself this. Are you staying out of love or out of fear of what happens if you finally let go? Because sometimes the bravest thing you can do is simply walk away and let the truth speak for itself.